This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
Hello, I'm Marcia Cavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, there's a new terminology common to popular culture. It includes the reworked word influencers, which is the creation of content creators, all of whose work can be found on TikTok or other forms of social media. The new language is even having an influence on local politics, including our mayoral elections. We will examine why and how, and we'll also look at the newly selected Archbishop and what to expect as he faces major challenges, that and using the National Guard to fight local crime, as well as a new lease for the Superdome and the latest on the election are on the list for tonight's Informed Sources. Errol, Laborde, producer of Informed Sources, Carlie Kollath Wells, reporter, Axios, New Orleans, Will Sutton, columnist, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocates, and Tony McAuley, staff writer, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate. And we'll go on over to Carlie first, because we are now in the city of New Orleans, really in the last run of the race for New Orleans, the mayor of New Orleans, and then also council races and such too. So campaigning is really heavy and hard right now, but there's also sort of a new way to campaign that the candidates are really embracing, particularly one.
Yeah, they are running a modern campaign. They're reaching out on TikTok and Instagram. So the three front runners all have their own house accounts. They have their ones where they are reaching out with their particular messaging. But a new thing I've noticed for this campaign is they are reaching out to influencers. So those are people who have a large following, TikTok, Instagram, not so much Twitter, X right now, but TikTok and Instagram. And they are trying to win them over to amplify their message, to reach younger demographics, to reach people who may not be staying up on every story that I'm reading, and to really get the vote out for younger
not catching those ads on newspaper or even on radio right now.
Right.
How does one become an influencer? You just go out there and say, "Here I am"?
I mean, you can. I mean, influencers, it depends what you're influencing. I mean, most of the campaigns, so I went to one of the events. Helena Moreno has been the one who's really been embracing this. She's hired a group. It's Delta Current Strategies. Lauren Loisel is the one who's working with them. And she has really made her name with connecting influencers with Democratic campaigns in Louisiana. And she builds this relationship by...
And we see a picture right now
so that's
of one such event. Yeah.
Yes, Lauren Loisel is the one up on the staircase. You see Helena Moreno right in front. So this is one of her events for the content crew, the creator crew, not content crew. And so she hosted her first one at the Chloe. This is at Jam Nola. This is an opportunity where content creators with various followings can go in, can get to know Helena Moreno, what she's standing for, what she wants to do, and they can make videos with her, and then they can amplify that and put it out on their platforms. So the campaign's been very specific. These are volunteer positions. They're not paying people to be on there, which is different from traditional advertising. I mean, there's plenty of things where it's if you want to endorse a product, you're going to get paid for that. But Helena's campaign, OT's campaign, Oliver Thomas, he said the same thing. They are also working with creators. They are not paying. So this is very, very popular with the mayoral election right now.
So if the campaigns are putting so much focus and effort on this, obviously they must believe then that it's resonating with these younger voters. Is this what they're finding?
I mean, you're getting people to show up and talk. I mean, they are everywhere right now. They're at every forum. They're doing all the interviews. They're also on TikTok. I mean, TikTok has got millions of viewers and millions of people interacting. So right now, they want to get the message out wherever they can, and hopefully that will translate to more people showing up at the polls.
I just looked at some of the registration data, and there's more than 6,000 registered voters who are 18, 19, and 20.
Wow.
So, I mean, you get 5,000, 3,000, that could make a difference with being over or under 50%.
Yes.
Well, that's always the issue, with these campaigns is getting the young voters out there. I mean, we have, you're talking about, they're following influencers, they're listening to what they're saying. The campaigns are hoping to get excitement and engagement among these young people, which is great. It really is good. But the bottom line for the candidate is you got to come out and vote for me. So is this going to resonate to that extent? Are young people going to go vote?
I mean, that's always the goal.
I always wonder, what are these voters who are picking candidates off of TikTok and off of videos, what are they responding to? Like, are they concerned about balancing the budget? Or are they concerned about other things? Like, okay.
I see a lot about potholes and broken streets and infrastructure. Housing, yes, my rent is too high. I want to stay here. What do I do about childcare? My car has gotten, the window's gotten smashed. Or like my street floods, or every time my street floods, my car floods. Just basic everyday life issues people are concerned about.
Now, looking on your website, you'll have some of these influencers have their own videos, their TikTok videos. So this is what's different about candidates, that essentially everybody's got their own TV. You have the whole list of people you can go to and hear them talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Right, right.
Well, the infrastructure issues, really, that's kind of what's polling high right now, too, among the New Orleans electorate. And because the streets are in such terrible shape, your cars get beaten up all the time, streetlights, and then, of course, flooding. So I would guess anybody who's living need, whatever the age, that sort of resonates with them. That's a concern.
Right. I mean, it's just a place where you could talk about your everyday life. I mean, that's what people are doing on social media. It's like, what resonates with me? What is something that I see in my everyday life? What's something new at the grocery store? What's, the pothole that affects my daily commute? And that is right now in the political terrain with what's happening.
The picture that you had, it was at Jam NOLA.
Yes.
So what is Jam NOLA? Tell us a little bit about that.
Jam NOLA is an art experience. It's a ticketed event, or a ticketed venue. So you go in and you pay your ticket, and they've got different little art selfie stations set up. So you can take a selfie with a big statue of Lil Wayne. You can go into an absinthe room, you push a button, it turns all the lights green. There is a giant alligator that you can go take a picture of with its teeth, and they're all made by local artists. It's a beautiful experience. But I mean, it's exactly what content creators are set up for. You're going in, you're taking cool photos, videos to put on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and just having fun, elevating culture and art in New Orleans.
And so Moreno really heavily using them with the other candidates too? Now moving
yes,
into
Oliver Thomas has said that he's had creator events. I've seen interviews with him and with Royce Duplessis, all on social media. They're all working with influencers to talk with them. They're granting interviews. I think right now the ones that I have seen the most, they're resonating with Helena Moreno. She's also put the most time into it, having a dedicated company that is building those relationships, is reaching out and saying, we want to work with influencers and we want to see what they want in building those relationships, and then say, hey, this is why the Helena Moreno campaign can work for you. But they're all reaching out in different ways.
All right. Well, engagement really important, and going to the polls even more so. All right.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Carlie.
No problem.
All right, E, over to you, because we're going to have a new Archbishop here.
This was the week when most of us heard for the first time about the city of Metuchen, New Jersey. And we're still debating here, do you pronounce it Metuchen? And that seems to be the consensus. That is in the outskirts of New York City. It is a commuter town, the kind of place where you work in Manhattan, get a martini and take the train to Metuchen. But it's a fairly affluent town. As an archdiocese, it didn't become an archdiocese, I think it was until 1981. And when the new archbishop was here, he was saying that he's coming like from the newest archdiocese in the country to one of the oldest, that New Orleans is the second oldest. And he was born in Camden, New Jersey, which is near Metuchen, and so he's worked most of his life around there. Now, he did spend some time in Rome. He headed this college for American prelates in Rome, and so he knows his way around Rome. One of his
Here's his name.
Yeah, that's it. James Cecchio. Okay. One of his expertise is finance, and I studied a lot of that. And I suspect that when the Pope was sitting down and looking at the guy, because the Pope, before he became Pope, one of his job was interviewing and considering candidates for archbishop for cities around the country. And so this guy might be on his list even before he became Pope. And here's a guy who's an expert on finance, and boy, that might be what you want in New Orleans. He's also the treasurer for the National Conference of Bishops. So I think he'll go in. But he'll go in, he's going to be working with Archbishop Amon. The agreement is Bishop Amon is past the retirement age, but he can stay on until things are resolved, if indeed they get resolved.
The bankruptcy.
Yeah, with bankruptcy, and then he'll take over, and then he'll move in. So he's going to be well schooled in that particular issue. The story he gave is that he was a few weeks ago. He was at his archdiocese. His mom is still around, and so he visited his mom. And every week he visited this nun in the senior care center who he remembered as a student who he admired very much. And so he went to visit her, and after visiting the nun, he got the call from the Vatican. Hey, we want you to be the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So he's going to equate the nun, I guess, with being the Archbishop. So he's around. I called his office today. Actually, he's traveling. He's out of the country. But one thing that's curious, there have been 19 bishops of New Orleans. Now, the first 5 weren't archbishops. New Orleans wasn't an archdiocese, and so they were just like bishops. It was in 1850 when New Orleans became an archdiocese, and that was Bishop Blanc. By the way, you can tell who the really major bishops were when you look at Friday night football scores. The ones that have football teams named after them, okay, like Rumble and Ham, okay. Well, this guy must have been something, okay.
Local football teams,
yeah. And Archbishop Blanc was regarded as really one of the major people that built the Archdiocese of New Orleans. One thing I was curious about, Cecco is an Italian name, and they even called Frank Maselli at the Italian American Federation, says, this is an Italian name. I said, yeah. There's never been an Italian bishop in New Orleans, at least one with an Italian last name. I mean, and so I've looked at it. And I don't know if that's any inherent discrimination. I mean, maybe, just the settlement patterns. Of the European bishops, the ones that were born in Europe, most of them came from Germany, and then a couple from France. And so the fact that we're getting an Italian bishop, but the real thing would be...
Didn't the Pope's family that went through New Orleans, they were of Italian... The Pope, the current Pope's family that went through New Orleans had an Italian name.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of connections there. But the other thing, though, is that what made New Orleans it's always had a huge Italian population, and that was because of the Sicilian migration. Huge Sicilian migration. New Orleans had the largest Sicilian migration in the nation. We don't know if he's Sicilian. In fact, I called his office. Can you check? If the guy's Sicilian? I think that'd be kind of cool. Okay. I mean, if there was someone with Sicilian heritage who was the Archbishop of New Orleans, because of Sicilians. I mean, from St. Joseph's altars to cannolis, everything else. I mean, it's all Sicilian influence, and so we're checking on that. But anyway, so he's around, and he's going to be working, and then I think kind of move into the office smoothly. Bishop Amon, was born in New Orleans. He worked hard. I think he always had a reputation as a good prelate. But boy, he got it at a bad time. Okay. In church
it's been a real challenging time for the
time, and so one day there needs to be just a whole separate discussion about him.
Yeah, so the new Archbishop does come in to deal with a lot of issues, but we welcome him. We hope that he has a wonderful time here in the city of New Orleans with all of his fellow Italians who are here.
And maybe the people from McCutcheon can come and get in the Amtrak train and celebrate.
All right.
He's only 59.
Thanks a lot. Well, let's go on over to you because we're here in the talk of a group of other people who may be coming to Louisiana and New Orleans included, and that's the National Guard.
Yes. So President Trump made a big thing of this actually during the campaign. If you go back and listen, he talked about taking control over cities that are crime-ridden. Some months ago it was Los Angeles. More recently it was Washington, D.C. Currently, it's Memphis, Tennessee. The president mentioned Chicago and New Orleans, so there's no movement right now of coming into New Orleans, but there is a draft plan that says that up to 1,000 National Guard would come to Louisiana to urban centers. So I don't know how you would come to Louisiana and include even 2 or more without looking at the city of New Orleans. The issue isn't that the National Guard hasn't been in New Orleans and other communities to help, particularly when disasters have struck. The issue really is coming in to do what and to help in which ways. and to overtake or overrun a local law enforcement agency, and to be in battle gear and big guns and enforcing presence as opposed to assisting the local police department. When I talked to Chief Ann Kirkpatrick, she said she didn't want a takeover, but she would be happy to work with the National Guard. And so without going further, essentially in my ears, what I heard her say is, give me more money, more resources, and that's what I really need. But if you're going to send men and women, let them work into the structures that we have.
Within our own police department. Well, for one thing, the numbers in the police department now have been down for a long time.
That is correct.
You know, ideal was supposed to be here anywhere between 1,400, 1,600 of the various numbers that have been tossed out there, and we're at what, 900, a little bit above. So manpower might be good to have, but as you said, what are they going to do?
I remember when John Bell Edwards was governor, there was some incident that happened, and there was talk about bringing in the National Guard to help the police. And John Bell Edwards says he was opposed to that. He says because the National Guard is not trained to be police.
They are not.
They're trained to be security, and be there in disaster, but they're not trained for police work.
They don't have the powers either, by the way.
Yeah,
they don't have police powers of investigation, arrest, those kinds of things. So I think local community leaders have said, as Ann Kirkpatrick has said, more resources, but maybe towards federal policing agencies, FBI, ATF, that kind of thing, so they could actually weigh in on the types of crimes that need to be addressed here.
That's right, because the National Guard has a role, and for the most part, the National Guard reports through the structures to the governors of the states, and not the president. But the president is using the powers that he believes that he has, and that's one of the reasons that he's primarily focused on Republican states now, because some of these cities are led by Democratic mayors. But some of the cities that are led by Democratic mayors in Louisiana have higher crime rates than the city of New Orleans. So Marksville, Monroe, Shreveport, there are other places in the state of Louisiana that have worse crime rates. Crime rates are at a historic low in the city of New Orleans. Can it be better? Yes. We can always yearn for a day that we have no crime. That would be incredible. If we were to find out about that, that would make front page news. We had a day where there was zero crime. But unfortunately, there are bad people who do bad things, and they do it on a very regular basis, and some people make a career out of it. But it's not a reason for the National Guard.
Okay, so what is the latest on that, real quick, on the National Guard potentially coming to Louisiana?
Governor Landry has said that he's supportive of the idea. I think there's a situation where Governor Landry, being the strong governor that he is, wouldn't want the president to Bigfoot him and come into the state of Louisiana, especially with the success that he's had, because remember, he got quite a bit of pushback with Troop NOLA. And Chief Kirkpatrick makes a point of saying, we have made it work. We've made it successful. Right. So she would want that type of relationship, and I think the governor understands that.
All right, well, thanks a lot. Tony, over to you. Superdome lease, any closer?
Closer than last week, absolutely, according to the negotiators that are involved. It's any day now, but it's been dragging on for quite a while. The basic deal to keep the Saints in the city, which is, of course, what most people are interested in, has been in place for a little while now. That would be a 10-year lease with 4 or 5-year extensions that the Saints could opt for. And there's some other key points that are in place, like the share of concessions and the share of the revenue from game day concessions, I should say. But what has held things up are these side deals that were in place in the previous lease that was negotiated back in 2009, which Governor Landry's administration, his negotiators, have said they're determined to roll back some of the terms of that. And the folks on the Saints side say that is their phrase was the backbone, the financial backbone of the deal that they negotiated before and what makes it viable in the type of market we have and the size of market we have in New Orleans. So they say, the last they said last Wednesday at the board meeting of the Superdome Commission, they said we're just an inch away. They've been a couple of inches away for weeks, and they were supposed to have it done after the Super Bowl was played here in February. But they're hung up on that because they don't. What the state doesn't want to do is to just roll over the what has been described as very lucrative terms of these side real estate deals for Benson Tower and Champion Square and the practice grounds in Metairie. But the Saints say that they're not going to decouple, is the word they've used, those real estate deals from the stadium lease deal. So that's the hang up.
That's what I was going to ask you. Couldn't the stadium lease deal just be signed and then we could go ahead and compete for the Super Bowl of 2031? Why not? Why couldn't that happen? Well, I think you just sort of answered that.
Well, that's the position of the state negotiators, and the Saints say it's all a package. It all has to be done together because it only makes financial sense to them if it's done as one package. Also, their lease, one of the reasons that it was quite a complex and lucrative overall package for them in 2009 is that they have legal terms in the lease deals that cross default to the stadium lease. So it says, for example, very early on in the Benson Tower lease, if any of the terms of this lease are not met, then the stadium deal is in default. And it also has a provision that says whatever stadium deal you agree, this deal gets renewed for the same term. So they've got that locked in, and that's pretty hard for the lawyers to unravel.
So the Benson Towers, it's the state occupies most of that tower, right? State offices
state
in
agencies, lots of different state agencies occupy that at predetermined rent levels. It gets really in the weeds between the two parties when you talk about the terms, because the state auditor, the current one and the previous one, said the rates are way above market. I mean, like $32 versus $20. That's huge. But the Saints say, oh, it's not. It's a real estate complex real estate situation where. With state agencies in there, it's not calculated the same as if it was private sector, so you have to make So this is, you can imagine why the lawyers' hours are getting racked up.
Yeah, because it's complex. So back to that 2031 Super Bowl, there had been a push to get this deal done, last week, because there was a deadline for us to be in the running. Is there still a possibility that we could be in the running if this deal signed soon?
Two sides to that as well. The Saints and the NFL say we missed that deadline on the 17th, and New Orleans is not moving forward on the short list for 2031. And if we don't get 2031 for various reasons, Mardi Gras scheduling and so on, we wouldn't be up again for 2038. They left a little crack of the window open saying that perhaps Mrs. Benson could persuade Roger Goodell to put us back on there before the full vote from the owners. So the state side says, well, it's a bluff, and there's no guarantee we would get it anyway, and we're standing firm on getting something done on these other aspects of the lease for the public.
Okay, so we're anticipating that it's about to happen. We shall see.
Yeah, next week, if unless they're telling porkies again.
All right.
Who dat?
Thanks, Tony. Okay, E, we're going to wrap up with you because we are close to an election in the city of New Orleans.
Yeah, well, I guess the most important political thing this week was the Times-Picayune endorsing Helena Moreno, which I don't think surprised anybody, but that endorsement came out. And you mentioned Cleo Fields, of all people?
Yeah, just today weighed in and endorsed Royce Duplessis for mayor of New Orleans.
Okay, and so that's starting to happen. I think we're going to be hearing more about that. We've seen a few TV debates. These debates, there's really no major divisive issue out there. There's no issue that's dividing the community. Everybody's against crime. Everyone wants better city services. There's been, since two of the candidates are council members, there's been a few pot shots at the council saying that there's been too much disorder with the council. But the council members say, look, it's not us, it's the mayor, okay? And much of the pot shots have to do back and forth. If you look at the polls, if you got to pick one side to criticize politically, you're probably better off criticizing the mayor because she's just not that popular right now. But that kind of thing's going on. But I just don't think, and if the mayor were a candidate, I mean, she's term limited, then that would be an issue. Okay, she'd be out there. But it's just not that major thing. Usually these kind of so-called debates work better when there's a runoff. You know, when you have 4 or 5 candidates running, it's kind of hard to tell. When you get it down to 2 people, then you can kind of pick. But there's a good chance in the 2 major races with sheriff and mayor, there's not going to be a runoff. That's going to be decided in the primary. And so I don't know, in the end, when they look back at it, when they say how important the debates were, it maybe gave people a chance to see the candidates, to get some exposure to them. But they're not always like they used to be.
Well, there certainly have been a lot of them.
Yes.
A lot of debates, a lot of forums, and that's separate and apart from what the campaign leaders, campaign staff has done with the individual campaigns.
Yeah.
And I understand why different groups want to focus on their issues, but as someone who's gone to a number of these debates and forums, even though they have said we're focused on small business, or we're focused on the culture, or we're focused on economic development, or this or that, there have been some of the same questions asked at almost every forum.
So you had a chance to listen to the
Yes.
same answers, I would guess, too.
And I've
same
heard
questions.
them adjust
Okay.
accordingly.
All right. Well, we're out of time. We need to now go around
Yes.
the table. So, Ian, let's go over to you.
Okay.
for the other stuff.
Starting today, the police department has started this thing called Front Burner Fridays, where they're going to make a news event out of isolating, pinpointing some sort of criminal out there they're looking for, showing pictures, having interviews, telling more about this, and trying to stir up interest in going after this person.
Okay. Carlie.
I am interested if the facial recognition debate is going to come back up after the mayoral race. Talked with different council members this week. They said it's still under discussion. They're looking at it, but really curious to see if that's going to be back.
Okay. Well, over to you.
Well, I'm interested in seeing that this is pretty much breaking news. There's a $70 million donation to the UNCF, and I'd like to know whether some of our HBCUs will be a part of that.
Okay. Okay. Tony.
Well, on the campaign trail, economic development is an issue I've been looking at, and I'm working on a story about one of the candidates making it a red line that's a big project in town, which I will just refer to obliquely, has to use union labor. And that is a very contentious issue. So have something on that soon, I hope.
All right. We'll be looking for it. Thanks a lot, guys, for being here. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
Support for this program comes from the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation, committed to funding educational causes.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.